Hey guys, you're watching Bobsdecline. We just got a call, customer complaining of their lights blinking off and on. They said it's been going on quite badly all morning. We got about an hour's drive ahead of us before we get there, so sit tight, let's check it out. Alright guys, so we're just rolling into a trouble call here where the customer's reported some flickering light issues. Before we get going, a few things I wanted to go over. Even though this trouble call has already been categorized as flickering lights, it may in fact be one of a few other similar problems. See, in our company, we categorize non-power outage issues into generally three categories. That would be lights blinking, lights dim and bright, or partial power. And although apparently similar in symptoms, they are in fact very different in nature and will greatly affect my approach in troubleshooting. For a flickering lights call, if the lights are flickering throughout the entire house, it's likely a bad connection on the high voltage side. Whereas if they're only flickering in certain areas of the house, it could be a bad connection on the secondary side on only one of two of the hot lights going in, which would eventually lead to a partial power call. And lastly, the lights dim and bright call is most times a bad neutral, especially if the lights are getting brighter than usual. So first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna go see if the customer's home and get a better idea of what exactly is going on. All right, so the customer was home. They did call. Now, it sounds less of a flickering lights call and more like a lights dim and bright call. She was pretty clear that as the lights flickered, they didn't go completely out. She says the lights dim down, and then when they come back on, sometimes they come on real bright. So that's a pretty clear indication of a bad neutral. Now that's not 100% sure, but I'm gonna start troubleshooting for that issue first. The easiest way to do that is to start at their meter. All right guys, so here we are at their meter right now. The only way that the bad neutral is gonna show up on our readings is if there's a load on in the meter. Once we pull that meter, there'll be no load. The voltage should revert back to normal. We're gonna use a meter puller here. All right, so we've got our meter puller installed. We're gonna stand off to the side of the house when we pull this meter. That is exactly what's not supposed to happen. So that meter is actually stuck on there somehow. All right, so this didn't go exactly how I planned at all. That meter's actually stuck on the house. So we're gonna go ahead and open the transformer before we go any further. All right, man, that was weird. We had to pry that meter right off, and it won't be going back on, that's for sure. But surprisingly enough, there was actually no damage inside the meter. Sometimes when they pull off hard, you'll see there's some kind of a compound in the lugs that'll act like a glue in this extreme cold. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna be installing a new meter. We're actually going to be using a lubrication on the meter so it doesn't happen again. Now you don't need much at all. Alright, so what we're going to be doing now, we're going to be reinstalling that meter without the faceplate on. That way we can check some voltages while the load is on. But first, let's see what we got for voltage with no load. .8 and 123.8. That's easy enough. 247.7. Let's get that meter on there. .8 and 118.1. So it went up 2 or 3 volts on one phase and down 2 or 3 on the other. That's definitely a bad neutral. Now first I want to make sure it's not the neutral in the actual box. So I'm going to check on the top side lug of the neutral, bottom side. Alright, we got the same thing in both cases. As soon as we get that neutral fixed up with load on, the voltage should go back to the 123 volts per side. Now it's very important that while we repair this neutral, we don't have the meter on unless we have the transformer open or the power shut off. The last thing we want is to have that voltage really skyrocket on one end and start burning things up in the house. Now usually when I start to troubleshoot the neutral, I'll just kind of do a visual from the ground so I don't waste too much time getting ladders out and climbing poles and stuff. We're going to take a look on the roof. We got 4/0 copper to 1/0. There's no visual oxidization. Take a walk down the line. The neutral is straight through on this pole. There's a couple connections feeding that light on it, but the neutral itself is not cut, so we know there's no issue there. And the neutral is straight through on that pole as well. Now the transformer isn't right on the mainline pole here, but it's likely that the issue with the neutral is between here and the mast on the roof. As if the neutral was bad on the transformer, the multi-grounded system would likely help that out if there was a bad neutral between the main line of the transformer. You can see this is a isolation point here, those 3 cutouts. They're fused. If there's a problem down the line, she'll blow here. You want to keep that in mind if we gotta go up there and work, that those things could let go at any time. It's not likely, but it could be pretty nasty if they do go. Now, it looks to me like there's a broken spreader block up there. All right, I think we're gonna start right here. Now, I don't know if you can see that plastic spreader block. You can see their neutral making a loop right around here. I can't see where it's actually connected, and something caused that spreader block to snap. Let's go get the truck, set her up, and take a closer look. All right, guys, so a few things to keep in mind before we go up. Right now we are set up on the road, so this particular area is a 50 km/h zone. It is a straight stretch of road. There's no blind turns or anything behind me. We've got the truck off the road far enough that there's not a whole lot to worry about, and we're only going to be set up for a short period of time. Now, if I gotta get up there and start rebuilding the whole pole, we're going to get some flaggers and some backup here to help things out. Now, I anticipate there being a broken neutral connection, so I'm going to bring up with me 2 things: a crimp it to fix it, and a press. We haven't confirmed that that is the problem yet, but if I need a whole lot of other stuff, I'll come back down and get that. Now, the other thing, the 1 kV gloves I was using when I was working at the house are not sufficient for this pole, as there is 7200 volt connections just above my work area. So we're going to be bringing our class 2 20 kV gloves. Check your expiry date, of course. Test the gloves. That's already done. Let's go up and take a look. Hopefully this is a easy call when we get out of here. So while we're up here working, it's very important that you keep your mind on the job. There's high voltage just above our heads. So let's say I get a few arcs going on the low voltage side, gives you a bit of a spook, you jump back. You don't want to get your hands flying up into that high voltage stuff, which is just above our heads. That's also why we're going to be working below everything while we're up here. Yes, sir. All right, take a look at this. So the neutral connection actually got broke right off the pole. Now, hard to say what happened here. There could have been a vehicle accident, bumped the pole and shook things up. Could have been a tree come down. I see here that neutral was actually busted off on the secondary side as well as the stirrup there. We've got a bare spot right here. Let's get this fixed up. All right, so this one was actually a fairly easy call to diagnose the problem.
You see, when you're checking the voltage at the meter, first without any load, then with load, the more load that's on it, especially on one phase or the other, the more the opposite phase is going to increase in voltage. Now, even though I only went from a 123 to a 125 volts, it's a clear indication that it was a neutral problem. There should be absolutely no increase in voltage at any time on one phase or the other, unless of course it's on both phases at the same time, and that could be from a voltage regulator down the line tapping up, or a sudden drop on the line of load, in which case you'll have an increase in voltage, but never just on one leg while the other one drops down. Let's go check that voltage. I can assure you now that it will be back down to 123.58, whatever, per phase. Either way, it's going to be the same on either side, if not awful darn close. Again, we're going to check without and with load to compare our sides. We should have this one wrapped up. Okay, guys, so we're back at the house now. So first thing we're going to do before we put that meter back on, check the voltage with no load. Alright, we got 124.7 and 124.6. So now we'll put the meter back on. Not the same meter that broke, of course. Get some grease on the lugs, to the side. Boom. Now, one thing you're not supposed to do when installing these meters is bang them on. If you notice that I give it one good firm push once I made contact. Alright, so we've got 123.5 and 123.3. So we are good to rock and roll. Voltage didn't go above the initial voltage on either side. It's going to go down on both sides just from load. We'll remove this meter. Reinstall the cover. Now, when installing these meter rings, you'll want to make sure the ring grabs the steel in behind the meter as well as the case of the meter. Otherwise, you're defeating the purpose of having the meter ring. So you're going to seal it. And that's it. Let's go talk to the customer, let them know what we found.
All right, guys, that one was easy. You gotta love it when the problem jumps right out at you like that. Sometimes these flickering light calls can be a real pain in the butt to track down the problem. Now, before I go, a couple things here. Our meters are all federally regulated. There's actually a seal that goes between the glass and the meter itself. So if this glass is removed, that seal gets broken. Now, that's not our seal. That is the metering agency that looks after our meters. They take this stuff real serious. So we'll fill out some paperwork letting them know what happened. Another thing is, no matter what you find on a call, there's sometimes some really weird coincidences going on. So as you talk to the customer before you go, let them know, I'm very confident that I found the problem. He checked out his lights, everything looks good. He couldn't get it to act up at all, but you always let them know if the problem comes back or persists, give us a call back. Sometimes there's 2 or 3 problems that compound on each other. You might have missed something. You'll want to check things out real good. However, you don't want the customer to be scared to call back should there be an issue, especially in this case where the customer did have an electrician on site already that verified everything on the house side is okay.
So I'm just filling in the meter information now, and I'm putting in the reading from the old meter. It's an old analog meter. Sometimes they can be tricky to read. This one here looks like it has an interesting reading. See if you can't figure it out. Put it in the comments below what you think the reading is.
All right, guys, Thanks for watching my video. Make sure you subscribe. It's a huge help. And while I get you, if you enjoy my videos, check out T. Will, Lineman for Hire on YouTube. This guy is somewhere down in the States. From what I can tell, he seems to concentrate mostly on telephone lineman work. The editing is through the roof. Check out his videos. They're real cool stuff. I think you'll like it. We'll see you next time.